Australia's call to arms. Our diggers prepare for battle, with the only complaint being they could not get to the enemy sooner. Now more than ever, your country needs you if democracy is to survive the emu scourge that plagues our fine land. Mechanical genius joins with the muscle of millions of men to unleash devastation upon our enemy, the likes of which they have never seen before. Our enemy is cunning, but they are no match for our highly skilled diggers and the sheer might of freedom. Are you as brave as these fine lads? Join the Australian Army today and get a free hat. Remember, we're all in this together. Go get 'em, boys!
That's right, the Australian Army once went to war with the emus. And they lost. They fucking lost. Hey, I'm Jake and welcome to Choo. In 1932, the Australian Army went to war, declared war on the emu, and it didn't turn out so well. Now, what little audience I have are predominantly Australian, so saith the analytics. But if you are overseas and you don't know what an emu is, it's basically a big dumb flightless bird, kind of like an ostrich, but shitter. And in the 1930s, the Australian Army decided to decimate their population. We'll get into why, but it didn't go as planned. Basically, it was one of the biggest shit shows. This is a wild story, so stay tuned. Following World War I, large numbers of discharged veterans who served in the war were given land by the Australian government to take up farming within Western Australia. With the beginnings of the Great Depression, farmers were encouraged to radically or drastically increase wheat production. But it turns out the farms were located in a popular emu migration area where after a massive emu fuckfest, i.e. breeding season, as many as 20,000 emus migrated to their usual chill spot. You know, to hang out with their bros, drink whiskey, smoke cigars, and brag about all the hot bird sniz they just got. But it so happens that a bunch of farms had popped up when they were away. Big, delicious wheat farms. And a bunch of new water sources were also set up to cater for the farms, so these emus have just been out fucking and mucking around for the last, 6 to 8 months. They come back, all of a sudden there's a smorgasbord and plenty of water to drink. The 20,000 emus aren't going anywhere anytime soon. Naturally, they were pretty chuffed and, started smashing the crops. So, with the former military now, farmers' crops being absolutely smashed by emus, the farmers had had enough and went to petition the government to do something about the big fucking birds. And this is where things get a little bit silly. So, war on the emu was declared, and under the command of Major Hold on a sec. Major Gwendolen Purvis Win Aubrey Meredith. I'm not mentioning this guy again because fuck that for a name. But anyway, under command of Major Meredith, a little battalion was put together, or I don't know what the term is, a squad, to take care of the birds. But basically the guns that the soldiers were using were shit. They didn't have enough oomph to reach the birds and would jam constantly. One attempt made on a flock of over 1,000 birds resulted in only the death of 12 birds, where the other 980 odd birds made an escape. So just imagine a fucking sea of emus, a sea of birds, with the Australian Army just fucking unloading round after round into this massive flock and only killing 12 birds. Absolutely, I mean this with absolute respect to our Aussie diggers. I know I'm poking a little bit of fun here. I have nothing but respect for people who lay down their lives for this country. But they kind of really sucked at killing emus. They fucking suck. It's not the troops' fault. The whole thing was a giant fuckfest. I'm glossing over a lot of the finer details. I'll link to some more in-depth articles and podcasts and stuff in the description. But yeah, absolute respect to the diggers. But man, you guys got to get better at shooting birds, man. Fucking hell. After that massive fail, it was noted that the emus then split into smaller groups, and I kid not, they were reported to have leaders, like a team leader, who would stand tall and guard his posse, and when in danger, like if the Australian Army got too close, the leader of the emus would signal the other birds to tell them to scatter. They're learning. The emus figured out that if they split into smaller groups, at least this is what it seemed like they were doing, who knows if they were just being personified, but at first they all hung out in a giant group. After the first initial attacks from the Australian Army, they split into smaller groups and dedicated team leaders to these groups that would see the soldiers coming a fucking mile away, and these birds would take off. Apparently they weren't doing this before, but they figured out how to evade the army. That's kind of fucking spooky if you think about it. Have you seen an emu? They look dumb as shit. I don't know how they figured that out, but that's pretty fucking scary. I don't know, man. Here's a hilarious quote from an ornithologist. An ornithologist is like a bird expert, right? Of the time. They're basically bird nerds. The Emu Command had evidently ordered guerrilla tactics, and its unwieldy army soon split up into innumerable small units that made use of the military equipment uneconomic. A crestfallen field force therefore withdrew from the combat area after about a month. That's a real quote from a bird expert at the time, which is that's just fucking good stuff, isn't it? As ammo and supplies were low after the war, and with the Great Depression really starting to kick off, the army retreated. Like, they literally couldn't figure out how to kill the birds effectively, so they withdrew, much to the dismay of the farmers. Okay, so I will mention that dude's name one more time, because he's like still a prominent figure in this story. Major Win Aubrey Meredith, after the withdrawal, said, quote, "This is a fucking fantastic quote. This is a real quote from a major of the time. If we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world. They can face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks. They are like Zulus, whom even dum-dum bullets could not stop." Now, he doesn't mean dum-dum like you're a dum-dum, like a little kid insult. Dum-dum bullets, it's my understanding there's some kind of hollow point explosive thing. Anyway, apparently they were a big deal back in the day. I'm not a military nerd, I don't know. But basically he's saying these birds are fucking awesome, and if we could somehow conscript them, we'd win every war we ever went. We could have used them in Vietnam. Anyway, so the army withdrew, and long story short, the farmers had another sook to the government and said, like, dude, our crops are getting devastated. You're putting all these demands on us to make wheat. We can't meet quotas because of the fucking emus. So once again, another military effort commenced with a bit more success, but at a great cost, because apparently the bullet to emu death ratio was something like 10 bullets per bird. So it took at least, and this is an average, which means some birds took more than 10, some birds took less, but you're looking at a minimum 10 bullets. This is what they were using to take down a single bird. You're talking 20, 30,000 birds. That's a lot of bullets. So out of the thousands of birds that were left, they were still barely making a dent. And there was an outcry from international parties such as British media who condemned the culling of this rare bird. With the Depression, another war on the way, and tens of thousands of bullets being more or less wasted, eventually the army once again withdrew and the farmers had another sook, yet to no avail. Many more pleas were made to the government because the emus were just smashing their crops, but it just wasn't viable. They just couldn't figure out how to stop these birds, so the government went, sorry, you're on your own. Also, can you, keep making wheat, please? Fucking government. Aren't they great? Not much has changed in 100 years, I'll tell you that much. Bloody hell. But here's what happened. The farmers went, okay, so we don't have guns. Should we try a fence? Pretty much what they did was they just built a big fence, and because they're flightless birds, these birds literally can't fly, the crops were saved by putting up a fence. I mean, you would have thought that would be the first thing, put a fucking fence up. No, they thought, machine guns would be better than a fence. It's good stuff. Anyway, so the crops were saved via the use of a fence, and that's pretty much a really, really abridged version of this story. Now, I've glossed over a lot of the finer details, the funnier details. I recommend a podcast by Australian podcasters, Do Go On. I'm not affiliated with them in any way. I'm way too small for it. They have no idea who I am, but they did a really good episode, Do Go On the EMU WAR, where it's about an hour and a half. It went into a lot of detail, and it's absolutely hilarious. And just a real insight into how bureaucracy fucks up a lot of things, rash decisions. And, one of the details I glossed over was the army were hoping that, with the prediction of another war on the horizon, that perhaps the emus could be used as target practice. It's something I didn't mention earlier. So it wasn't just, let's go blast some birds to save the crops. They also thought that this would keep these soldiers, a lot of whom were traumatized from World War One. It gave them something to do whilst also honing their skills. It just turns out the emus are fucking badasses and it didn't work, essentially. But what did work? A fucking fence. So not long after this, actually, they started farming emus because it's a really, really good food source. They're really easy to farm. They're, friendly enough. They're easy to control. They also have a lot of other purposes. They're quite an oily bird. Their feathers are very oily, so they use them for balms and creams and this kind of stuff. But the meat is actually very, very delicious. And it's more available than you would think, even to this day. I highly recommend eating native animals, obviously, if it's legal, because I don't understand the obsession in this country with the big four: lamb, beef, chicken, and pork, when we have an abundance of food here that's suited to this environment. But I'll talk about that more in a bit. Our national emblem is the kangaroo and the emu. Now, you probably already know this. it's said that these animals can't walk backwards, therefore symbolizing that Australia is always moving forward. And you may have also heard that we're the only country in the world that eats its national emblems, but that's simply not true at all. Many countries eat their emblems. Spain, Denmark, Finland, and believe it or not, the US, the bison is the official national mammal of the US, and you can eat the absolute fucking shit out of a bison. So we're not the only country that eats our national animals or our national emblems, but it is a fun thought. Like I mentioned, if you're going to eat meat, why not eat meat that's suited to your environment? Something that's not going to suck up a lot of resources, not going to desertify the country. It's something that is and has been here, evolved here for thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, more or less. So it makes more sense to me to eat these animals. Not to mention, emus, for example, are delicious. They're nutritious. They're fucking everywhere. They're not even close to endangered. The army can't even fucking kill them. Let's eat them. It makes sense. If you're going to eat meat, eat an animal that's suited to your environment. Like, do you guys remember this commercial? I mean, back in the day, from way back in the day, I haven't even had like a public aerial or whatever they fucking call it plugged into this TV or any TV for like 20 fucking years. But remember this as a kid? There's Sam Neill running around telling everybody to eat more lamb on Australia Day. They'd always pop up around Australia Day, and it's like him saying, red meat, we're meant to eat it. Don't get me wrong, I eat a lot of fucking red meat. I'm just saying, how the fuck is a Kiwi, a New Zealander, trying to sell us European animals remotely Australian? It's fucking not. Like, don't get me wrong, Sam Neill's a treasure. I love him to bits. A Kiwi trying to sell me European animals, and that's Australian? Fuck off. Why aren't we eating kangaroo? Why aren't we eating fucking emu? Why aren't we eating platypus? I'm joking, obviously. Although, if we had better environmental control, maybe there'd be enough platypus around for everyone to eat. They're endangered. Don't eat them. But I don't know what I'm talking about. I've gone on a little fucking tangent here. The point I'm trying to make, really poorly, it might just be the scotch here that's fucking gone to my head, is that there are plenty of animals that are suited to your environment that would be more appropriate to eat than the big four, like I said, beef, chicken, pork, and lamb. Those animals are fine. I eat beef, chicken, pork, and lamb. Not so much chicken, I don't really care for it. I prefer rabbits. But my whole philosophy, the whole point of Choo, why it's called Choo in the first place, was this originally started out as a blog meant to talk about sustainable food, including eating meat. Now, a lot of vegans and veg heads out there might say that's not sustainable. You can go and eat your soy plantation from a deforest thing in Borneo if you want, and call that ethical if you want. I think what's more ethical is eating animals that are suited to your environment, if you're going to eat animals at all. So Choo started out literally meaning Choo, as in eat more kangaroo, less beef, less lamb, less meat in general, but not specifically. That's what my whole ethos, that's what our whole philosophy and what started Choo in the first place. Right now, you can go out there and get a big old emu steak. It might be a little bit harder to track down. It's a little bit easier up in the north, up in Western Australia, up in Northern Territory. You can easily get it here in South Australia in Adelaide Central Markets, for example. Go out there and get some emu because it is one of the most succulent birds. Oh, that reminds me. Check out, I'll put it here. Ooh! This is me cooking emu in Darwin. Well, we did a whole series of Darwin videos. I couldn't figure out the camera, so it's a bit fucking, looks a bit shit. Audio's a bit shit. We were pretty smashed the whole time we were there, but we had a good time and we cooked up some emu, we cooked up some camel, a lot of native and local fishes. Go and check it out, because if you want to learn how to cook emu, this is a good little starter. If you want me to cook more emu, leave some comments, because I honestly think these animals are so underrated. They're so much better for the environment than any other animal that we farm here. It's literally the most sustainable meat you can get in this country. It's free range. A lot of emu is farmed, a lot of it is hunted, but they live a pretty good life. Let's put it that way. They're not crammed into a little fucking thing. Eat more emu. Eat more emu. That's the point of this video. I finally got there. Thank you, Glenn Fiddick. I've been Jacob. You've been watching Choo. Eat more emu. I love you guys very much. Like, subscribe if you found this funny or interesting or whatever, educational. Share this video around, it really helps the channel. Share this around, because we're going to be doing a lot more native animal cooking. Obviously everything we do is going to be legal. We're not going out there shooting fucking bilbies and shit. Although they probably would be incredibly succulent. But they're endangered. So our philosophy is don't eat endangered animals. That's the point of this video. Don't eat endangered animals. Eat some emu though, because it's fucking tip top. Alright, see you later.